Okay, great. Let's get started. So thanks to everyone for tuning into today's conversation, SEO Strategies at Scale. Insight's really excited to partner with our own content marketing agency, Brafton, for today's webinar. As I'm sure all of you can attest to, creating content and developing a successful SEO strategy can sometimes not be an easy feat, so partnering with Brafton has been a huge help for us. And today, before we do get started, please note that we'll be sharing a recording of the webinar before the end of the day, so keep a lookout for an email from me, Christina. We'll also be reserving time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. So we do encourage you to enter your questions in the side panel throughout the presentation, and we'll answer them at the end. But enough housekeeping from me. I'll now pass the mic to today's speaker, Jeff Baker from Brafton. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you for that intro. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining me today on SEO Strategies at Scale, powered by Insight Venture Partners and Brafton, of course. So I'll start with an introduction to Brafton and myself so that you have an idea of who rather is talking at you today. Brafton, we are a data-led content marketing agency, and you're going to see shortly why we differentiate ourselves as data-led. My name is Jeff Baker. I'm the AVP of marketing for the Brafton brand. So I started out as a client-facing SEO specialist. That's kind of where my where my roots are in SEO, technical SEO, and web analytics. Since I've actually moved on to the dark side of internal marketing a couple years ago, where the water is nice and warm, and my team and I've got a few members that work with me, about 5 or 6 people internally. We use Brafton.com as a tool for marketing and generating leads, of course. However, and probably equally as important, we also use Brafton.com as a testing lab. So it's sort of a sandbox where we can see we can test new techniques for getting our products to perform better for our clients. And we present these techniques and we publish these techniques. We've been published on Moz about 4 times in the last year for different market studies, and this was one of them. That's why we are here today. We have a concept and a technique to share with you, and it's shown massive positive results for our brand. So we'll get started here. If I can get the slides to go, there we go. Okay, so does what we say actually work? Everything that we're talking about today, we want to know, does this actually work? So the proof is always in the pudding, and this is what we've seen, numbers-wise, from this initiative. Landing pages. So I'm talking about top navigation landing pages for your core products and services. I'm talking about re-optimizing the existing content that you have and writing new landing pages. These are arguably some of the most important search landing pages you can have on your site because it drives traffic via high intent keywords. So these are people that have their wallets open and they're shopping. They're searching for the topics and the terms that you actually provide to the market. And what we found is about 70% of our 37 core landing pages now rank on page 1 for these target keywords. And this is existing content, and this is some new content that we created. So we'll talk about that more later. Total keywords ranking. We keep track of the total number of keywords our site ranks for because each keyword ranking serves as somewhat of an inroad for a searcher to find us via a relevant concept that we want to be an authority on. And there is a direct correlation between the total number of keywords ranking and total traffic and conversions, both macro and micro. So talking newsletter signups as a micro, ebook downloads as a micro, and then requests for demos and contact us as a macro. We increased the total number of keywords we rank for by 69%, and that's just over about a 6 to 9 month period. That number has actually gone up to nearly about 100% if you look out about a year. Organic traffic, we're in the business of generating sustained high intent traffic. So for a one-time cost of content production, rather than doing PPC, we want to invest one time and drive sustained qualified traffic. And year over year, it's gone up 74%. Since this has actually gone up, this is now hovering around 115% year over year. And lastly, the blog keyword targets. So when creating new blog content, can you rank on page one? And we found about 43 to 45% of the time, the content that we write, the keyword that we're targeting, ranks on page one, 43 to 45% of the time. On the outside, looking in, may not seem like a lot, 43 to 45, you'd like to see that a lot higher. It's actually pretty rare. 43 to 45% of the time getting on page one for the target keyword. It's pretty rare. So if you're more of a graph type person, here's a couple graphs from, pulled this snapshots from Ahrefs. The first is showing the total number of inbound links that we've seen as a result of doing this exercise. There's more than triple. This next one shows, this is our, per Ahrefs, the Google Analytics. I'm sorry, this is the total traffic via organic search. It's going to be a little less accurate from Ahrefs. They're kind of, scraping data to find this. From Google Analytics, the number is actually a little bit more accurate, but it does reflect about 115% increase. And you can see, let me go back real quick. We had a very long plateau. So we plateaued with the amount of traffic that we had from a certain number of keywords. And that number increased. It just about doubled. And it maybe doubled and a half or so. All right, so we need to back up here, and we need to talk about why we did this and what we found out. So as you can see earlier by our straight line performance, we were plateauing very hard. We had a hunch that there was something more to what Google considered quality content. And there had to be some way to quantify that. And it makes sense that this would be the case because everyone is writing content. There's between 75 and 85 million blog posts created every single month. That doesn't count landing pages. That doesn't count resource pages. That's just purely blog content. So Google had to figure out a way to cut the wheat from the chaff. And as a result, when 77.4 million people are doing the same exact thing, no one is going to be a winner. So we're going to talk about what we found Google to consider quality content. But before we do that, we need to truly appreciate the statistical importance of what it means to rank for high quality keywords or high intent keywords. So what you're looking at here is a fairly current chart on click-through rates based on keyword position. So immediately, it should be pretty clear that you should only write on topics that you're reasonably sure you can rank on page one for. And ideally, you want to rank in positions 1 through 5. So if you consider the true cost of writing content, you can appreciate how writing blindly without any sort of target or reasoning is doomed to rank on page 2 or 3. 95% of content fails. Okay. And it fails because people forget the importance of this chart. So if you have a writer spend 4 hours on a blog, and that's about roughly the amount of time it takes to write a blog nowadays. This is the average. This is measured. Your total labor investment and the opportunity cost is a minimum of a few $100s, and it can go upwards of a few thousands. I've seen, depending on if you're putting infographics and you're creating additional media to embed in the content. If that blog doesn't rank in the top 10, it's basically invisible. So you may get one big push from email marketing or whatever promotion you do, but after that, it's not going to drive sustained traffic, which will increase revenue. So every piece of content needs to be treated like a precious snowflake. So let me explain why that is. Pretend you sell a subscription billing product, like a platform that auto bills people. For example, Netflix, Hulu, some sports apps like MLB TV, Sunday Ticket, I believe that's the NFL one. You need these businesses to find you with the keyword subscription billing. They need some sort of service that can do recurring billing for their customers. This term gets searched 320 times per month, which sounds great, right? So you're ranking number 15, second page. It's not horrible, you would think. Second page is okay. It's actually wrong. So if you look back at that chart, your estimated click-through rate is about 0.4% of all searchers, which is going to yield you 1 or 2 visitors every month arriving on your site via that keyword. 1 or 2 per month. Ouch. So what do? You can pay for those clicks, but that's going to cost you almost $43 per click. That's going to get very expensive in a hurry. So what kind of traffic are we truly going to need to make a measurable impact here? Let's take a look at how this is going to break down. We're going to play with numbers a little bit. And if we're being extremely ambitious, we can expect 10% of the visitors that arrive on your site via the keyword subscription billing to convert or submit contact information to speak with your sales rep about some sort of package that's going to work for their brand. And if your sales team closes about 10% of inbound leads, it's about average, 10 to 15% or so, then essentially 1 out of every 100 visitors that arrive through that term, subscription billing, it's going to result in revenue. It's going to result in a closed deal. That means you need 100 clicks. Very simple math. I know this is very, very simplified. However, this can transpose to real life situations, and it does all the time. So how are you going to get them? This is a business proposition. How are you going to get those 100 clicks? You're currently getting 1 to 2 per month organically, which if you do some quick math will show you that it's going to take you forever to generate any sales via that keyword. So you can pay for it. It's going to cost you $4,000 plus over every month, or $50,000 per year for one keyword. And if your deal sizes are substantial enough, you might be able to justify this. However, you could try to rank for these keywords organically. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So now that we've gone over the reasoning and the monetary impact of ranking for keywords, I'm going to talk about how you go about owning keywords organically. Okay, so Google came out a couple years ago and declared that quality content was what was going to get you to the promised land of keyword rankings. So we guessed what that meant. We guessed longer content, right? It makes sense. Long content, hope for the best. Didn't really work. I've just finished a study, published it on Moz 3 days ago, that shows there's no correlation between absolute content length and performance, even when compared to your competitors. So if competitors have written very, very short content, say on average 400 words, and you want to blow them out of the water with a 1,000-word post, are you going to outrank them? No, there's no correlation there. What we found was that quality was being measured by how thoroughly a piece of content covered a target keyword. So how well does that content answer all the questions the searcher might have? And how competitive is the piece of content in comparison to your competitors? And we're going to get to that. But first we need to talk about, what do you even write about? So before you write content, you have to figure out what to write about. And that starts with very sophisticated keyword research. You have to have the metrics to justify writing on any topic. So if you aren't certain that the audience is searching for something and that you can rank somewhere meaningful for it, it's a total waste of time. So you have to start with the numbers. So we evaluate keywords based on search volume. Are people actually interested in the topic to justify writing it? Organic difficulty. There's a direct correlation between organic keyword difficulty scores and where you rank for that keyword. This is a big one. This is also a piece that we published on Moz. You have to use a keyword tool. SERP crowding. So if you did actually rank on page 1, how crowded are the SERPs, right? Like, is it completely dominated by PPC? Are there news carousels? Are there images everywhere that may detract from clicks? This happens all the time. A good example is anything in the insurance market is going to be very, very crowded. Google Trends. Has the keyword fallen out of favor in recent months? And then subjective, just taking a cursory look at the SERP landscape for the keyword that you're trying to target and saying, all right, is this relevant to my brand? Is this relevant to the searcher intent that I think it might be? And just do a manual search through Google. So for those of you cat lovers out there, I've got let's pull an example. There we go. Here's an example spreadsheet of what we would look at if we were searching for cats. Okay, we're going to populate this with all kinds of data here. We're going to populate it with search volumes. We're going to populate it with keyword difficulty scores. We're going to populate it with SERP crowding scores. This is pulled from Moz. And we're going to also populate it with search intent information. So you can sort this by, basically, I put in conditional formatting here. And I can see what the ideal combinations of search volume and keyword difficulty are. So if we want to sort by keyword difficulty. Oh, there we go. I'm going to have to make a copy of this. Well, I can't edit this because I don't have a copy of it, apparently. However, you can sort this by keyword difficulty, right? And you would see that some of the lowest on the list would be this one here, cat health insurance, and average life expectancy for a cat. You're going to see that those are the easiest to attain. And if you match those up with search volumes here, and you see that there's a good justification for writing it, it's a good combination of search volume plus keyword difficulty, it's going to tell you two things. It's going to tell you, one, that there's plenty of people searching that. Your audience is interested in that particular topic. And two, the search difficulty is attainable. That means you're actually able to rank somewhere meaningful for that keyword. Okay, let's jump back into this presentation here. You've chosen a keyword. Now you need to know how to write on it. So we mentioned earlier that it's all about how well you cover a keyword that you're writing for. So how do you know how to cover a keyword? So if you're to look up subscription billing in Google right now, and you just read through the content of the top 20 results, you'll see certain themes start to arise that are talked about. We'll call them topics. Okay, you can see there's a pattern of discussion points on each page, all the way from the title tags on each page, down through the H1 through H6 tags. You're going to see key points that each page is covering. Once you've compiled a list of all the topics that everyone's talking about for that keyword, you essentially have a blueprint for every discussion point that everyone is talking about for that topic. And those topics are here, A through F. You can do this for existing content that you want to re-optimize for quality, or with brand new content. So in the case of existing content, we'll go back to our examples in the presentation right here. You'll see that the content that you've already written has gaps. Okay, you see that our topic gaps here are B and C. Means competitors have talked about these prominent topics, and you haven't. So your content only covers 4 out of 6 topics possible, 67% thoroughness, basically we could call it. This poses an opportunity for you to go back, rewrite the content so that it comes through, so it is more thorough, and then reindex the same URL. We've done this. We do this with our content all of the time. And we've seen rankings improve within 60 seconds of reindexing the content. So I'm talking about searching a keyword, seeing exactly where you rank live. In one case, it was 3. We ranked 3rd for a keyword. Reindexing the new content, doing a fetch as Google, and then immediately going up to position 1. We've seen other instances of going from position 32 to 4, from 10 to 6, on and on and on. All within 1 minute of reindexing. And then they stay there, and oftentimes they improve. Most of the time, they actually improve from that position. We've actually recorded a screen share of this happening live, in case it sounds a little outlandish, sounds unreasonable, but we did a live screen share of this happening. It's very cool. It's published in a Moz piece that we can send out afterwards in the follow-up notes. So I want to emphasize the importance of re-optimizing existing content, because you really can't miss when you do this. this is the fastest way to drive additional traffic to your site. So with existing content, here's some of the benefits that you can experience. You're updating existing URLs. So that means the historical link value that these URLs have, which accumulate over time, will be retained. So you're not starting fresh. Another thing is we know now from a study that we just published on Monday on Moz that older content performs more favorably than newer content. This is a fact. It gains value over time. Another reason is the topic is already chosen for you. So you can just go into one of your tools of choice, like SEMrush, and you can see what you're already ranking for, and you can optimize for that keyword. You're already there. You're going to choose something from that's just off of page one that's a relevant keyword, and you're going to re-optimize it for that keyword with more in-depth content, and you're going to rank better for it. Another point is half the content's already written. You just need to update it for quality and expand on it. Okay, let's just go to SEMrush real quick. I'm just going to show you an example. So this is what I would do live. We'll just use our site as an example. .com. Going to go to our site, and it's just going to show an overview of what we're currently ranking for. All of our keywords are going to pop up down here below. Okay. View full report. It's going to pull all the keywords that we rank for. Okay. We're going to throw on a few filters here. So what we want to do is we want to find keywords that are just missing page one. So we're going to find opportunities to bump up our scores. So I'm going to include positions greater than 10. I'm going to include positions less than 30. I'm going to make sure it's worth our time. So I'm going to include search volume over 100. SEMrush tends to overshoot search volumes. So I shoot a little bit higher. And we're going to include keywords that we want to optimize our blog today. We're going to look at strictly blog URLs. Okay. And we're going to click apply. And now essentially what you're left with is a list full of opportunities. So each one of these keywords that it's going to pull out that you already ranked for tells you a few things. One, you already ranked for it, right? So it just needs a little boost to get you up to page one. Two, it has sufficient search volume, okay? And if you add another filter for keyword difficulty, which we can do, it'll tell you that you have, it'll limit it to keywords that you have substantial opportunity to actually rank somewhere meaningful for. So now all you have to do is go through this list for relevancy. You have to take a subjective look at each one of these and say to yourself, is this a keyword that actually makes sense for me to rank on page one, and I want to drive traffic through it? Is this a keyword that I want visitors coming to my site through? So knowing that we're a content marketing agency, yeah, I definitely want to rank on page one for title ideas. I want people to find us with that. Social media campaign examples. Oh yeah, absolutely. That is super relevant to us. I want to rank on page one for that. Good blog titles. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing here, and you can see each one of these keywords is associated with a different URL. So I'm going to take that URL and I'm going to do everything that we just talked about. I'm going to see how well we covered this topic for title ideas. I'm going to identify topic gaps, rewrite the content, and then resubmit it to Google. Simple as that. And that is the fastest way to drive more traffic to your site with the least amount of effort. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so now you can do this for new content as well. I was just showing you doing this for existing content. It's just that you're going to be starting with like a fresh new blueprint. So when we were looking at those topic gaps, you'll have zero topic gap. You'll have no topics that you'll discuss. So you have to write on every single topic as opposed to adding additional topics. All right, so let's talk about the content brief. Do I have a link to this? Yes, I do. Perfect. So at this point, we just have a whole bunch of numbers. You've essentially pulled this into a spreadsheet, and you're not going to want to hand this to one of your hardworking writers and ask them to decode all these metrics that you've pulled into a sheet. You need to add context for them. So this is where a creative brief will come into play. Anybody can create these things. It's not particularly sophisticated. But I do need to say it for emphasis. You need to add context for your writers. Just handing them a target keyword along with a list of topics is kind of a recipe for keyword stuffing. So as you open this up, we talk about basically how to go about ranking for keywords, how we want this piece of content written. And ideally, you want your writers to cover the topic sufficiently, as though they were answering questions. So ideally, you don't want them to write on a topic and put keywords into it, right? You want to reframe the thought pattern here, and you want to have them write a piece of content that fully supports a keyword, that answers every potential question somebody would have when searching that particular keyword. And that's what we've done at the beginning here. And then we include all the metrics that we just talked about. This goes in here. Some title suggestions. We always make sure to include the keyword somewhere in the title tag. This is very important. On-page SEO still has a place. And this is, again, going back to the piece we just published. We found that there's actually a 39% correlation, which is strong, very strong as far as Pearson correlation calculations go, between on-page optimization scores and your keyword ranking. So you're going to want to make sure you use that keyword somewhere in the title tag. Moving down, this is where we start to edit our project direction. So we're gonna talk about exactly how we want the piece of content covered. In looking through some of the SERP results, we'll get an idea of how people are talking about this and what they're saying, and we're gonna make sure that they follow this formula that we want them to follow. Right here is the real meat of the brief here. So we start with the project summary that we just talked about, and then we get into all the topics that we were talking about. But instead of just putting, tangential keywords in here, I'm sorry, not tangential, but adjacent keywords in here, related keywords, we're gonna ask them to use each one of these major topics as a small discussion point. So it's almost going to serve as its own little discussion point, maybe a mini paragraph that needs to be discussed. So as you remember before, these are like topics A through F. All of these need to be included within the content. And we make sure that there are some main intent questions that are covered. Okay, so what would be some of the questions that somebody would ask when they're searching that keyword? We make sure that they get addressed here. Okay, then this goes to the writer, and they have everything that they need to write a very thorough post. This completely eliminates the need to write for the sake of hitting a word count. Everybody's written before. Everyone's written back in college and back in high school, and you had certain word counts to get to, and you all remember the feeling of trying to write to a particular word count as opposed to writing with intent. If you have a good blueprint like this, you'll never have a writer that is trying to stretch words. All right, back to our presentation. We are almost wrapped up here. Lastly, piece gets written, but it's not over yet. At this point, you need to put your data hat back on. You need to start tracking the performance and trends. So you need to set up a campaign. You can use SEMrush or a similar tool. You can use Moz, you can use Ahrefs, whatever you like, so that you can track ranking performance. You need to track the traffic. You need to track conversions, those macro conversions I talked about, and the micro conversions, and generate insights that you can iterate on for performance. This is where your strategist really shines through, and they can help make adjustments based on this hard data to improve the results that you see. You need to determine what's working and what's not working. So this actually, we hit 32 on the spot. This concludes the presentation. So I would like to thank everyone for your time, and I'm going to open this up to any questions that may have come through. You can send them directly through GoToWebinar, and as mentioned, this is going to be sent out in follow-up